To escape her loneliness, she fell in love with an ordinary young man, but she didn't know that this very love would destroy her family. A heartbreaking story of betrayal. Before you listen to this story, if you are a new viewer of our channel, please subscribe to our channel.
The sprawling penthouse on New York's Upper East Side was Sophia Williams's world, a fortress fit for a fairy tale princess. Her daily ritual was to gaze out of her vast bedroom window at the magnificent Manhattan skyline. Her father, Richard Williams, was a renowned Wall Street investment banker, and her mother, Elizabeth, was a distinguished art critic. The Williams family's wealth was legendary. Their life was like a meticulously staged play, where every scene was flawless and every line of dialogue was polished. Sophia was born and raised amidst this opulence. Her childhood was spent at the Spence Academy, one of Manhattan's most elite private schools. Summer holidays were passed at their grand estate in the Hamptons, and winters were for skiing on the snow-covered slopes of Aspen. The names of European countries were as familiar to her as the neighborhood park. As the only child, none of her wishes ever went unfulfilled. Her wardrobe was filled with couture from the most famous fashion houses in Paris, and her garage housed the latest models of luxury cars. Sophia's life was, in a word, perfect. At least, that's what the outside world believed. But inside this gilded cage, Sophia's heart was profoundly lonely. While Richard and Elizabeth provided for every material comfort, their busy lives left little time for their daughter. Richard was consumed by the stock market and billion-dollar deals. Elizabeth was occupied with art gallery openings, auctions, and high society events. Sophia was often left alone in the vast penthouse, her only companions being the household staff. Her conversations with her parents were limited to formal pleasantries at the dinner table. Her world of solitude deepened when she enrolled at Columbia University. Even in the bustling crowds of the vast campus, she felt alone. Her friends were all children of elite families like her own. Their conversations revolved around fashion, parties, and expensive cars. Sophia participated in these discussions. She laughed, but deep down she felt an emptiness. She longed for someone who would see her for who she was, beyond her family name. Someone who would listen to the unspoken words of her heart. It was during this time that Jake Miller entered her life. Jake was a brilliant student at the university, but his family background was a world away from Sophia's. He came from a modest middle-class family in Queens and was attending Columbia on a scholarship. His eyes held dreams and determination. There was a raw authenticity in his words, a quality that was rare in the polished world she knew. Sophia first met Jake at a university debate competition. His sharp logic and confident delivery captivated her. After the debate, Sophia approached him herself, and that initial conversation sparked a friendship. Talking with Jake, Sophia discovered a new world, a world where a person's worth wasn't measured by their bank balance or family name, but by their intellect, dreams, and humanity. Jake showed her parts of New York that were entirely unknown to Sophia. They spent hours talking in Greenwich Village coffee shops, walked through Central Park, and ate pizza at small, unassuming restaurants in Brooklyn. With Jake, Sophia began to rediscover herself. She realized that the life she had been living was nothing but a performance. Real life was hidden in these small, genuine moments. Slowly, their friendship blossomed into love. Sophia told Jake everything about her life, her loneliness, the distance between her and her parents, the hollowness of her glamorous existence. Jake listened to her with rapt attention, comforting her and painting a picture of a new life, a life free from ostentatious luxury, filled only with pure love and mutual understanding. Sophia found her soulmate in Jake. She decided she was ready to leave everything behind for him. She told her parents about Jake, but Richard and Elizabeth could not accept the relationship. To them, Jake was just an ordinary boy from a lower middle-class family with no social standing. They tried to convince Sophia that this relationship was a disgrace to their family. But Sophia remained firm in her decision. She rebelled against her parents and began spending even more time with Jake. She introduced him to her luxurious lifestyle. They dined at expensive restaurants, shopped for designer clothes, and went on long drives in her sports car. Initially, Jake felt a bit uncomfortable with all this, but he gradually grew accustomed to it. Sophia's love was blind. She never tried to read the person behind Jake's eyes. She was in love with an image she had created herself. She believed that Jake was the prince who would free her from her gilded cage. She had no idea that behind this charming facade lurked a cunning predator, ready to ensnare his prey in a web of love and strip her of everything she had.
Jake's true nature was that of a skilled hunter who slowly corners his prey. He had astutely identified Sophia's vulnerabilities. He knew she suffered from a lack of love and the deep shadows of loneliness. Thus, he began weaving an enchanting web of affection, a calculated plan to bring her completely under his control. His first move was to emotionally isolate Sophia from her family. He would often tell her, "They don't love you, Sophia. They only care about their social status and wealth. To them, you're just a commodity, a tool to expand their business interests." These words acted like a slow poison in Sophia's mind. Her relationship with her parents was already strained. Jake's words deepened the cracks. Jake skillfully instilled in Sophia's mind the idea that he was the only person who loved her unconditionally. "I don't love you for your money, Sophia. I love your soul. I want to set you free from this prison of privilege." Sophia believed his words with a blind faith. With great cunning, Jake fostered feelings of resentment and distrust towards her parents. He would twist minor incidents, portraying Richard and Elizabeth as Sophia's adversaries. For instance, when Richard once scolded Sophia for a massive credit card bill, Jake framed it as an attack on her personal freedom. "See, I told you," he said to her, "your father wants to control you. He wants you to live by his rules." Through such psychological games, Jake gradually pushed Sophia away from her parents. She all but ceased communication with them, ignoring their calls and messages. She spent almost all of her time with Jake. Jake's next step was to seize control of her financial independence. He knew about the substantial trust fund her father had set up in her name, which she would gain access to on her 21st birthday. Jake's eyes were fixed on that money. He began convincing Sophia that her parents wanted to keep her financially crippled. "Your father gives you money because he wants you to remain dependent on him. He doesn't want you to stand on your own 2 feet." Jake presented her with a vision of a new business venture. "We'll start a company together, Sophia. We'll build our own identity. We'll show them what we're capable of." The idea excited Sophia. She began dreaming of using her trust fund money to start a business with Jake. She gave him all her bank account details, including her online banking passwords, trusting implicitly that he had her best interests at heart. This was the opportunity Jake had been waiting for. He began siphoning money from her accounts, little by little. He would present fictitious expenses, claiming the money was for lawyers' fees for the business or rent for an office space. Sophia never questioned him, believing every word. But Jake wasn't just stealing her money. He was stealing her identity. He used her credit cards to buy expensive items, stay in luxury hotels, and throw parties for his friends. He passed off Sophia's lifestyle as his own. Blinded by love, Sophia failed to notice any of these changes in Jake. She didn't see how the sincerity and dreams in his eyes had been replaced by greed and cunning. She couldn't comprehend that the man she saw as her savior was in fact a criminal who had entered her life to destroy it.
Sophia's 21st birthday was a turning point in her life. It was the day she gained full control over her trust fund. Richard and Elizabeth threw a massive party for her, hoping it would be an opportunity to mend their strained relationship. But Sophia shattered their hopes by refusing to attend. Instead, she chose to celebrate with Jake, who had a special surprise planned. He took her to a lawyer's office.
There, Sophia discovered that Jake had already prepared all the necessary paperwork for their dream business. All that needed was her signature. Without a second thought, Sophia signed the documents. She had no idea that with that single signature, she was sealing her own doom. The papers were a form of power of attorney, granting Jake complete control over all her assets. Once the papers were signed, Jake's true colors began to show. He no longer bothered with the pretense of love. He started arguments over trivial matters, insulted her, and subjected her to mental abuse. He forbade her from meeting her friends, isolating her completely. Sophia became a prisoner of his control. Jake transferred the entire trust fund into his own accounts. He then began making plans to sell off the Williams family's properties, the Hamptons estate, the Aspen ski lodge, and a portion of the New York penthouse. He convinced Sophia that selling these assets would allow them to invest more heavily in their business. Though she hesitated at first, Sophia eventually gave in to his pressure. She called her father's lawyer and instructed him to take the necessary steps to sell the properties. Richard Williams was stunned by his daughter's bizarre behavior. He couldn't understand her bizarre behavior. He tried to speak with her, but Sophia refused to talk to him. Richard and Elizabeth sensed that their daughter was in grave danger. They hired a private investigator to look into Jake's past. What the investigator uncovered was horrifying. Jake Miller's real name was Jason Ryder. He was a hardened criminal with a long record of fraud and deception cases against him. His targets were always young, wealthy women from prominent families. He would feign love to swindle them out of their entire fortune. The report left Richard and Elizabeth devastated. They realized their beloved daughter had fallen into the hands of a dangerous criminal. They became desperate to save her. But by then, it was too late. Jake had already sold off most of the Williams family's assets and vanished with the money. He left Sophia alone in an empty apartment, with nothing but despair and emptiness for company.
The shock of Jake's betrayal left Sophia completely shattered, mentally and physically. It was as if a colorful curtain had been violently torn away, revealing a harsh, brutal reality. The world she had known her entire life had crumbled in a moment. Her love, her trust, her dreams, all had vanished into the deceptive sands of his lies. Catastrophe struck the Williams family. Richard Williams' business reputation and social standing were obliterated. The media feasted on their family scandal, publishing sensational stories. Their friends who had stood by them for years turned their backs. Richard used his life savings trying to cover the immense losses, but it was not enough. He was forced to resign as the CEO of his company. Seeing her daughter's condition, Elizabeth became a shell of her former self. She blamed herself relentlessly. She believed that if only she had given Sophia more time, if only she had tried to listen to her daughter's heart, this day might never have come. She sank into a deep depression and stopped leaving the house.
The FBI's manhunt for Jason Ryder lasted for several months. Finally, he was apprehended at a luxury hotel in Zurich, Switzerland. A significant portion of the money stolen from the Williams family was recovered from him. The news of Jason's arrest brought a new dawn of hope for the Williams family. When Sophia saw the news on television, tears streamed down her face. Tears of relief and liberation. She felt as if a colossal weight had been lifted from her chest. Jason was extradited to New York, where he faced multiple charges. Richard Williams stood as the primary witness in the case, presenting all the evidence of Jason's fraud to the court. Sophia also testified. Overcoming her fragility, she stood before the judge with courage and recounted the injustice she had suffered. Her testimony left the entire courtroom in stunned silence. The verdict came. Jason Ryder was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The other members of his fraud ring were also arrested. The Williams family recovered a portion of their lost fortune, but more importantly, they regained their honor and peace of mind. This ordeal completely transformed the Williams family's life. They left their Upper East Side penthouse and moved into a simple but beautiful home. Richard Williams did not return to his old profession. Instead, he started a new career as a financial consultant, using his experience to help protect others from financial fraud. Elizabeth left her work as an art critic and joined a volunteer organization, dedicating her time to helping people suffering from mental trauma. And Sophia? She completed her studies at Columbia University. She decided to pursue a degree in law with the goal of one day helping victims of fraud like herself. She did not forget her past, but she refused to let it define her present or her future. She had learned how to stand on her own feet and, crucially, how to distinguish between trust and deceit. The dazzling opulence that once defined the Williams family was gone. In its place, they found peace, love, and a mutual understanding they had never known before. They learned from their mistakes and began a new life. Their story was a tragic tale of a broken dream, but at its end lay the light of a new dawn, a light that taught them the true meaning of life.